We're lucky in Britain when it comes to niche sports car companies. They're almost always defunct, but let's look past that for now. With those small companies, you can end up with some truly special, incredibly rare performance gems that could be hidden away for decades. And today, I've got the keys to one of those gems. The TVR 440R. It may not be a Gran Turismo legend like the Cerebra Speed 12, but the 440R did have its time in the Test Drive Unlimited games. What makes this incredibly special is it has a top speed of 215 miles an hour, but it only puts out 440 horsepower. We'll get to how it achieves that crazy stat in a bit. To the uninitiated, people might look at this and think it's just a fancy Tuscan, but really, this thing is a purebred race car with number plates. It isn't just a bunch of fiberglass bolted to a space frame chassis like any other TVR. It does have that tubular steel space frame, but bonded to that is aluminium honeycomb panels, and then bonded to that is a full carbon fiber monocoque. You can see it in the transmission tunnel here. Just to add to the race car factor, it also has a fully integrated roll cage. Every bit of bodywork is also carbon fiber, which means when this car came out, it joined only a handful of cars that had a full carbon body. We're talking the Jaguar XJR15, Ferrari F40, and the McLaren F1. That was pretty much it. Something that the 440R also has in common with all of those cars is the 24 hours of Le Mans. Originally called the Tuscan R, the 440R was TVR's ticket into endurance racing in the mid-2000s, where it would have gone up against the best in the GT class, taking over from the lesser-engined T400R. At Le Mans, top speed is super important, due to a huge amount of the lap being flat out in top gear. That's why having a GT sports car capable of 215 miles an hour is a hell of a statement when turning up at the Circuit de la Sarthe. In true TVR fashion, however, the 440R never made it to the racetrack, but that didn't stop this road-registered homologation car being made. A cool fact, this specific car was the press car back in the day, and Jeremy Clarkson drove it on one of his VHS tapes called No Limit.
You end up with a top speed of 215 miles an hour.
I see the 440R as the offspring of a Tuscan and a Cerebra Speed 12. Yes, it's got the fundamental basics of a Tuscan, but especially at the front, it's got that aggression of the race car. The most striking aspect of the 440R, however, is the roofline. While a Tuscan would sort of give up around here and form a bubble, the 440R keeps going in an almost Italian style, sloping down more gradually and then flicking up into the ducktail. And then what I love is that the rear diffuser flicks up with it, almost in parallel. What a beautiful piece of design. Yes, it won't create as much downforce as, say, the massive carbon fiber number on the Speed 12, but a wonderful piece of kit. Modern TVR, if you're watching this, we want this. More of this. When we film with TVRs, we always make sure to rip the entire front end off and look in here. It's always risky when a little company decides to make its own engine, and the TVR Speed 6 is one of the all-time greats in that niche space. And this one was as beastie as they got, bored out to 4.4 litres and putting out more than 400 brake horsepower, apparently around 440. Doesn't it look pretty? I could pick over this car all day long, but let's get its face back on and drive it. First things first, I've been told this is one of one. there were two homologation T400, T440 cars made, and one of them is no more, it was crashed. So this is the only homologation 440R TVR in the world. That straight six up front has just been rebuilt, so I'm putting the first post-run-in miles on it. I've been told I can go up to 5,000 RPM, but if I say that it's about 7 degrees today, it rained this morning, and the car is on semi-slick racing tyres, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna explore it. You don't get an opportunity like this very often, but now's not the day to start playing about with a TVR. I've never driven a TVR before. Not a bad one to start with. Being the only one of its kind in existence, it's worth quite a lot. I was told, just before I left the workshop today, that this car is up for sale for £240,000. That's nearly £250,000. The sound of the straight six on the overrun. Does this thing have cats? I don't know. It doesn't sound like it. It is dumping fuel into the exhaust. And I've been told, again, complete custom, one-of-one exhaust on this thing. Had to be custom made while this car was being restored. No ABS, no traction control, but power steering. So that's one thing. Really, traction control in a TVR is the length of the throttle pedal. They make it really long. So if you do something silly and get the car sideways, you've probably meant it, or you just have a really heavy right foot. One thing it's not fitted with is sun visors. It's a classic UK winter's day, very low sun. It's about 2:30 just now. Bloody hell. I must say, when I looked at the car with the front off it, you see the profile of the chassis and you think it really should have been a bit sleeker. But I guess that TVR look, it was kind of bulbous over the top. Is it weird to say fish-like? Oh, listen to that. The suspension's very stiff. That wasn't even a pothole. That was just a drain cover. My God, I'm guessing this has got the full race spec suspension on it. It is stiff. One of the stiffest road cars I've ever driven. I guess something to take into account with regard to its stiffness is the fact that it is a carbon fibre monocoque. Any vibration and thump is just going to come straight up through that, where I imagine, you know, when it's more steel fiberglass, it soaks it up a bit better. This thing is rigid, which is good. It's what you want in a racing car that's got some number plates on it. I want a sun visor, please. How do you achieve a top speed of 215 miles an hour then? There are plenty of part-timers that barely sneak over 200, but it seems very tricky to get above 210. F40? Nope. F50? Nope. Carrera GT? Nope. SLR? Nowhere near. Clearly, it takes more than a nice engine and some carbon fibre to get there. To simplify it, it really comes down to 3 factors, and those are mass, power, and the drag coefficient. At least 2 of those have to be outstanding to achieve a truly high top speed. Let's take the Bugatti Veyron as an example. It has a lot of mass, it's a big, heavy car, but it has huge power, and once hunkered down in its low drag mode, really good aerodynamics, so it can get above 250. The Jaguar XJ220 has a relatively small amount of mass, and therefore it needs almost half the power of the Veyron to achieve 213 or 217, depending on who you ask. The 440R though has exactly 100 horsepower less than the Jag, but my God, do the other two factors put in some serious work. With all the race car technology on board this thing, it comes in at just 1,050 kilograms, just over a ton, much lighter than all the other supercars I've mentioned. But the real kicker is this thing's drag coefficient. It comes in at 0.32. That is a number that's more associated with hyper-miling, fuel-efficient, everyday cars, not supercars. Considering it has to have gaping holes for it to cool itself down, this thing slips through the air much more cleanly than any other supercar that you can find. Tell me another road car that gets above 210 miles an hour with this little power. I'll give you some time, comment down below. Me and the guys were chatting about this over dinner last night, and we only really came up with the Ferrari F40, but that uses 50 horsepower more to just achieve 201. It's a piece of crap, really. Just so you know, we've started a second channel where you guys can watch more DriveTribe, and it's called More DriveTribe. On there we'll be posting stuff that doesn't quite make it to the main channel, some behind the scenes content from some of our bigger shoots, and also some content that shows you guys more about the team, shows you who we are, what we're all about. So click the link in the description below or search for More DriveTribe and subscribe to our second channel. See you there. Oh yes. Fantastic gearbox, really, really solid, precise, beefy shift. God, I wish I could open it out. Let's find a good country road. I think this thing is gonna be spectacular. Let's spit the facts. This thing is faster than a 720S, faster than a Pagani Zonda F. It's nearly as fast, 2 miles an hour away from a McLaren P1. Oh! Have I mentioned it's stiff? My God, that went through my neck. When you guys hear TVR, I imagine all the stereotypes come to mind. Lack of reliability, fiberglass, and genuinely dangerous dynamics. Yes, but they also made some seriously cool pieces of kit, like the 440R. Now that I've put a few miles on this thing, that engine, it reminds me of really a 1990s Jaguar XK6. It brings me back to the first time I ever drove a Jaguar XK120. It's got that low-down tractability and torque and noise. See if this bit straightens up. Oh! Oh! You can keep your E46 M3. That is a straight 6. Just a reminder, this car is for sale through Drew Wheeler Sports and Classics. We'll put the link to the car in the description. I think for a road car, it is overly stiff. Any little bump or slight camber in the road, and especially the rear, just goes straight through your spine. This thing on a track would be an absolute weapon. Up in Scotland, where it gets much colder and much more potholy, this car would hurt. Genuinely hurt. Would you care with that engine though? Finally starting to get some heat in the tyres, some heat in the brakes. This car is coming alive, like all those race cars that have number plates do. All those race cars that people have been mad enough to convert to the roads. They take time, but my God, once they come on song, once they come on cam, stunning pieces of kit. Oh. Straight 6s are good. This one is phenomenal. Oh. It's finally twigged with me what this car has reminded me of. Reminds me of the MGSV. I drove one a couple of years ago. It was an SDR, the really rare one. And it's a very similar recipe. Yes, that was V8, but something about this engine, it has British muscle behind it. And it's a bit sketchy. It follows campers. And it's so quick. Do I believe it can do 250 miles an hour? Absolutely. Would I want to? What a chance. Ben Collins, you can take this one.